Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Naruto trained by Bardock for chunin exams. Before I start, please support for more amazing content and do consider subscribing to my channel and share this video with your friends. This is written by NeroSparda and link in the description and support writer. Let's start the video. On a faraway planet in another sector in space was a planet called Neat. From afar, the planet seemed alright, peaceful even. But the planet's surface told another story. The planet's Earth's surface charred and littered with craters, buildings crumbled and torn down, as if by a roaring typhoon, and bodies of the inhabitants of the planet scattered about with no life in their eyes, dead. But there was one person that was alive, but he was not of that planet oddly enough. His name was Bardock. No last name, his people didn't really care for surnames. He hailed from the planet Vegeta, with the king and prince of the planet having the same names, oddly. His people was a special sort of race. They were the Saiyans. A mighty race of warriors born for the sole purpose of fighting and nothing else. They all grew stronger at a special rate as they fought countless battle. If one of their people were close to death's door and come back alive, their power would double, maybe even triple to their original power. If I'm wrong about that, please correct me. The one characteristic that told one was a Saiyan was the usual brown-colored monkey tail just at the top rear and at the bottom of their spine. If a Saiyan had a tail and was under the light of the full moon, they would transform into unstoppable juggernauts of destruction as they turned into giant apes. The choice of his clothing is strange to a regular person's view. Well, except to his people and the people they are associated with. He was dressed in a black and green armor outlined in white outlines that was strapped by yellow spandex-like bands and fins on both of sides on the bottom of it, making it look like an armored tank top. He wore black spandex pants with black alien combat boots. Two red forearm bands that strangely stayed in place and had a red headband around his head. The headband red because of the blood of one of his comrades and his own blood. His hair was a mess of spiked hair, 3 of the spikes going left and 2 of them to the right, the middle matted down with only a small fleck of hair coming out the middle. He had dark abyss-like eyes and tanned skin, a large scar on his left cheek. But his state of dress was not one of that had just gotten his clothes after one wakes up, rather, it was one of fresh battle, as his armor was chunked off on his right shoulder, the right leg of his spandex pants from the knee down was torn off, his right armband missing, and his body bruised and bloodied. His gaze up to the sky. He did not need to look down as he had already vowed to his former active, but now dead crew. He vowed that one way or the other, the person who ordered their death, and his as well, would pay. He knew his people were going to die, but that didn't mean he wasn't going to die in acceptance. He would rather go down fighting so that he could meet his team again with a smile once he met them in the afterlife. How did he know his people were about to be destroyed? Well, a previous mission he had led with his former crew had them wipe out another planet while under the full moon in their transformed state. The coming morning had them relaxing after their mission had been completed. What they didn't expect was a survivor surprising them, striking Bardock with a pointed chop between his skull and neck. Since then, within a short time, he was bombarded with visions of the future. A future where planet Vegeta being blown up, with visions of his child, Kakarot being on Earth, fighting battle as a Saiyan should, but differently since he was not crazed for battle, rather, he fought for others and for the mere enjoyment of the fight. He was what Bardock knew was a descriptions of a great hero and fighter. But along with those visions was the injured state of his comrades, which were now dead. Now he knew what the vision of planet Vegeta being destroyed meant. Frieza, their benefactor and his former boss now, was going to destroy it. He certainly had the power to do so, and since he found out from his henchman, Dodoria, that he feared the coming power of his people, he planned on snuffing out the candle before it turned into a raging inferno. As he flew in the space pod provided to his people back to planet Vegeta, he passed a large spacecraft that belonged to one person. Frieza, great, Frieza, he's coming to Vegeta, I know he is, I can feel it, his eyes then set forward as his eyes turned hard. How bizarre, it's as clear as day, I can see into his mind. He thought as he felt the tug in his mind delving into the cold and cruel Triant's mind. The thoughts he heard from him planning on how to deal with killing his people by using his signature planet-destroying technique, the Death Ball. Just as he passed, alarms went off in his pod. Looking frantically at the controls, he tried to see what was the problem. As nothing was turning up, he slammed both his fists into the console. Damn it. He exclaimed in frustration. That was a bad mistake as the coordinates changed from his home planet to the one he was just passing now, Seeing this, he tried to correct it, but nothing was changing and the coordinates locked in place. No. He cried in despair as his pod shooting to the planet that he was now heading to. Lord Frieza, should we not mark that planet? We should not let the Saiyan go freely, said a green-skinned and darker green-haired feminine-looking man said. His name was Zarbon, one of 2 of Frieza's right-hand henchmen. After a bit of silence, Frieza spoke, his voice aloof and uncaring. "No, he will not be a problem. The scouters say his power level was getting dangerously low, and there is a power stronger than his at his arriving destination. It should snuff him out," his Coldy explained. "Shouldn't we take this planet if that power should oppose you?" Dodoria wondered to his lord and master. "No, this planet is off the market and has no value to any of our buyers." The cold eyes of Frieza then turned a bit to the portly hot pink-skinned alien. "Plus, their level of technology isn't advanced enough to venture out of their planet's atmosphere. If I remember from a scout I had sent here." He then turned his eyes back to the path of their destination. Already seeing and hearing in his mind the countless cries of death and destruction of the planet. Thinking made him chuckle darkly, but he knew he would be guffawing in satisfaction when he saw it with his own eyes. On the planet Bardock was heading to, a battle, or massacre is the word more like it, was taking place near a village. This village held powerful warriors called shinobi, warriors who fought from the shadows and took out their enemies with intelligence in their minds. Though some forego that and take the fight right to their enemies. This village was called Konoha and was under attack by a demon. But not just any demon, the demon lord of Makai itself, the Kyuubi no Kitsune. Its 9 tails swaying frantically, and its snarling face showed the raging anger on the powerful demon that was attacking them. It teared the land apart in its show of might and destruction, while also taking out the ninjas that were attacking it. The puny mortals dying in an instant as it crushed them. It breathed in and bellowed a roar with a streaming dark red fire shooting toward a large platoon to his side, burning them to instant ash, not even giving them a chance to hear their sweet cries of death. This remind you of a certain race of people, or is it just me? "Damn it, this damn demon just keeps coming," exclaimed a shinobi as he crashed himself on a tree in a show of fatigue. "Just keep holding it off, we have to wait for reinforcements from our yondaime," called back another shinobi as he threw a salvo of kunes at the beast. Not that far away, Bardock's pod crash landed on the planet, showering the area in an explosion of earth, the shrapnel cutting and lodging into the surrounding trees. The crater spreading a good distance, a testament of how hard the crash and entry had been. A hiss sounded throughout the area as the hatch of the pod slowly came down and stopped when it touched the ground. Groaning, as his injuries from the impact had worsened his injured state more, Bardock stumbled out of the pod, holding his right side in a bit of pain. Bardock though, through his pain, was scowling at his surroundings in anger. He was angry with himself for being so idiotic as hitting the fragile equipment out of his pod. Before he had came out, he had checked if he could immediately lift off and get back on course to his home planet. Sadly, the circuits were fried now with no way of repair. And with no knowledge of the level of technology of this planet, Bardock was pretty sure there would be no possible way to repair it at all. And that meant only one thing: now I'm stranded, he thought in resigned despair. He would not be able to warn his people of the coming danger, he would not be able to warn his king of the coming danger, he would not be able to tell Frieza right in the face that he was his own person now and didn't work for him anymore. He let the fatigue of his injuries get to him as he sank down to his knees and let out a yell of frustration and anger of the unfairness of the situation. But that yell turned into a pained scream as his mind felt another tug, the familiar feeling of another vision coming. It's happening, again, his mind's eye showing a child with a bit paler skin than his own, same hair and eyes, a brown monkey tail coming out of the bottom of his pants. It's Kakarot, Bardock noted on an instinctual level. A smiling child's face and body changing from that of a child to one of an adult that held the same innocence and peaceful nature in his smile and eyes. Another vision came, this one showing the battles of his son as he fought as a child to an adult, a fight with 2 Nameks, an old man who seemed a bit too perverted, a 3-eyed man, a long-haired rogue, and even the prince, Vegeta, himself. He also saw his adventures as he journeyed around Earth's surface, making his own experience of life and death, taking on challenges with his head held high in sure, but not arrogant confidence. "The one power Frieza seeks will never have, I have given it to you," Bardock said, an ethereal voice inside his head. He looked slowly left and right for the one who was talking, but then slowly recognized whose voice it was. It was the humanoid lizard alien that had attacked them on his last successful mission, so that you could see that horror of your end, the ethereal voice explained further to Bardock. "Where am I?" Bardock asked. He kept seeing vision within his own eyes as they continued. "This is the future," Bardock the voice explained. "This is that kid from before, isn't it?" asked the voice, though Bardock knew that question was rhetorical, since he knew the voice knew. "My son?" Bardock thought in surprise as now knew he definitely wasn't going crazy, these visions were coming to become true. "Yes, your son. He's growing into a powerful warrior, just like his father is, or was supposed to be," was the voice replied and confused the battle-hardened Saiyan. "What do you mean supposed to be?" was Bardock asked as that last part confused. "It seems fate has something in store for you, you were supposed to have died, along with your planet," answered the voice in slight confusion of the deviation that occurred on Bardock's fate. Hearing the confirmation of what Frieza was going to do made him remember his situation. No. Frieza. He thought angrily at the events unfolding before him. "Take heart, Bardock. A savior has been born," said the voice gently. "With his power, he'll be able to save people from the likes of Frieza and you." The voice then laughed cruelly at his situation and vanished as the visions ended with planet Vegeta once again being blown up. His eyes snapped back open and tried defiantly to get back on his feet. As he did so, he kept remembering Frieza's laughing, purely enjoying the destruction of his planet and people. Gritting his teeth in anger, he stood up proudly to himself. "Nuo." He called out, "Frieza, hear me now, one way or another, I will find my way to you and you will pay for the crimes you have committed." He vowed to the skies above in righteousness as his lifeblood spurted out a bit from his wounds. He would prove he wasn't anything like that tyrant. And he knew one example to follow, his son. "Kakarot, I promise that we'll meet someday so that I may apologize for the crimes I have committed in my life because of that scumbag." It was that thought he made his second promise. He enjoyed battles, sure, but he had only done more than he should have for that tyrant so that his crew could gain fame and favor from him. But that was not to be anymore. If Bardock had paid closer attention, he would have turned back to his pod by now. But it was too late as his eyes then focused to what was above in the skies. A full moon. Seeing this, he tried to avert his gaze quickly, but his primal urges wanted to be let out, to destroy everything in sight in frustrated anger of what was going on, and so it held his head in place. No, he felt the changes. He tried to turn his head, but it was too late. No. His pupils started to fade from his eyes. "Nuo." He called out in his mind as his pupils left his eyes, as the white of his turned blood red. Off in the distance, back at the massacre that was taking place near Konoha, the Yondaime Hokage, who also known as Namikaze Minato, stood on top of a large red toad. The toad having a bleeding line over its right eye, a symbol of the battle it just had with the Kyuubi, Gamabunta. "It's time," Minato said in resignation. "Are you sure, Gaki?" the giant toad asked, not really wanting to see this summoner of the Gamma clan to fall. "It's the only way, you know it," Minato said firmly to the red toad. Gamabunta sighed and nodded. Just as he was about to voice his readiness, an explosion occurred a fair distance away from the Kyuubi. They turned, along with the demon, to see what it was and widened their eyes as they looked at what it was. A giant monster-like ape. What was strange was the clothing it had. Minato could tell it had been in a battle as the strange armor and clothing were in tatters and broken. The giant ape had blood-red solid eye, no pupil in the center. Its face was almost the same as the Kyuubi's, a snarl of white-hot rage playing across its features. "That can't be Shukaku, he's a Tanuki," Kyuubi thought as it looked at the single tail that was swaying back and forth in anger. The odd thing it noted was the energy coming off the beast. It was like the energy the ninja used, chakra, he remembered. But it was just one part of the energy, with no help from the mental part of energy that was supposed associated to the physical energy coming from it. So that left one source of energy that it was using. The Kyuubi remembered the other term of energy martial artists and warriors used that didn't use the ninja arts. This also left another conclusion to it. It is a Saiyan, it thought as it got ready for the fight of its life. Living for countless years, he only remembered the battle most worthy to his attention. He had fought what he assumed was a scout of some sort. Before that happened, he had scoffed at the thought of actual aliens from the stars above. But seeing the scout fly around and shoot energy blasts at him changed that view. The battle had been one-sided at first, with Kyuubi being in the lead of the fight. But that night also had a full moon, and he saw the transformation with his own eyes. After that it had gotten a little harder to get rid of stupid ape, but he had come out of it with only a slight limp. When he had cut its tail off, the scout had shrank back down to its original form, letting the Kyuubi get a hold of him and get some information. After learning about his people and forcing him to lie about the value of this planet, he didn't need trouble from anyone who wanted to disturb his slumber. He crushed the fool and went about his way. Though he would always remember the battle just in case of another encounter. And now it seemed it was a good thing he remembered one weakness about the transformation, the tail. He'll have to cut it off. But looking into the eyes of the Saiyan told him it wasn't going to be easy. Even though he could see the primal instincts taking control of the Saiyan, just like the last one, he saw an odd sense of ordered thought going through its eyes. That meant along with that instinct was continuous battle experience that was coherent in its mind and would be most likely prepared for what he planned to do. Minato knew none of this as he pointed frantically with big wide eyes and gaping jaw at the giant ape. "You've got to be kidding me." Another Biju. Minato was really panicking now. He couldn't seal two Bijus into his son, Uzumaki Naruto. The last gift his Kushina had given him before her death. The sealing of one Biju would be enough strain on his son's developing chakra coils. Two would kill him and free them to wreak havoc again. His only hope would be that they fought each other and one of them died so that only one could be sealed away. His wish was granted as giant ape opened up its mouth and let out a pink beam blast from its open jaw at the Kyuubi no Kitsune. The blast surprised the demon as the last one was only able to blow fire and was thus immune to it. In its shocked state, it was hit full on as the blast hit its eye and sent him flying into the ground, making a large trench from sliding on the ground and parting a large part of the forest around them. The Kyuubi let out a snarl as it stood back up. It wanted a blast, okay, it would get one from it as well. Spreading out his tails and opening his mouth, a bowl of crimson chakra appeared just outside of its mouth. More chakra started to drift from his tails particle by particle. Energy being seen slowly moving to the sphere of crimson, pulsating every now and again. Once charged enough, it chomped down on it and swallowed it. What's it doing? Minato wondered as he observed the fight that was starting. His question referring to both Kyuubi and the supposed new Biju. The Kyuubi's forming attack left questions in his mind, but it also left time for it to be attacked by the giant ape that was Bardock, not he knew who or what he was. The ape just stood there, as if waiting to challenge the attack the Kyuubi would make. He then saw the Kyuubi's body expand disproportionately before it opened its mouth and roared out a large blast of chakra towards the ape. Minato had to, with Gamabunta, hold onto the ground with all of his worth as a great sonic boom and shockwave coursed throughout the area of the forest and Konoha. The blast was upon Bardock in mere seconds, the ape quickly crossing its arms in a guard. When the blast hit, the night skies were lit up by a great explosion that had occurred on impact. When the light died down, it showed a raging inferno blazing the area that had occupied the giant ape. Almost scoffing at the sheer stupidity the ape had, he knew the ape had an opportunity to attack him and ample time to do so. He turned back to the giant toad that had the ninja's leader on its head. Minato himself got set back to going through his plans of sealing. But they turned back to the inferno when they heard an ape-like roar from it. From out of the inferno, Bardock charged through, still in ape form, and tackled the nine-tailed demon to the ground. The Kyuubi roared in frustration and started to claw at the ape itself beating it with its stronger arms and fists. The two struggled with each other, clawing, punching, kicking, and occasionally chomping on each other's body parts. Minato never thought he'd see such a brutal fight, and the landscape was certainly changing the forests of Konoha because of that fight. He looked back towards the battle from looking at the scene of the forests and saw the two of them had their heads thrown up in the air. Right when they opened their jaws, the two lets out their respective blasts. Bardock's was still pink in color, as the Kyuubi's was crimson in color. The two blasts hit each other and held at a standstill, the brightness of their attacks glowing like a beacon in space. As they continued to struggle, the Kyuubi could tell that the blast from the ape was getting stronger by the second, while its energy stores were starting to slowly decline. Despite the popular belief that it is unlimited chakra, the Kyuubi only had really large reserves that were considered godlike to the people of this planet and had never tired or even had to use more than necessary energy than usual. But this damned freak of an ape came and brought him further into his already weakened state, since that Ichi had tried to steal his energy by using his Dijutsu, the Sharingan. That was the reason it had come, to steal back the power Madara had taken from him and kill him and his clan. But now he had to use the rest of it to try and kill this ape. Then again, there was always another time, though it may perish, its goals would still be accomplished, along with a new one. Tell me, Saiyan, what is your name? Kyuubi telepathically called out to it. Being more than a millennia years old, you tend to pick up some interesting skills. The Kyuubi could tell coherent thought was being forced through primal instincts, as the name rang out in his head. Bardock answered the ape in feral voice. Yaudiad it continued. Indeed, I am, but the Kyuubi then let its blast go and let the ape's attack, much larger than it normally was, envelop it, disintegrating it into nothing. But before its head was destroyed, it smirked evilly at him. My will and essence will not be destroyed. Its evil laughter echoed throughout the land, a laughter of letting anything and everything know of disasters to come. When the blast continued and hit a mountain, a great explosion occurred, a shock wave ripping through the air. Minato saw the ape lift its head into the air and let out a roar of triumph and beat its chest repeatedly. He looked at the area and knew it would take a long time for the forest to grow back, but what caught his eyes was a small flicker of light. He looked towards it and saw it was a sphere of bright red energy floating where the Kyuubi used to be. It then shot towards the horizon in the speed of light, leaving a long energy tail trailing behind. Minato knew what this meant. It meant that the Kyuubi was still alive and the only thing that could fight it off again was right in front of him. Knowing this was his only chance, Minato looked into Gamabunta's eyes and nodded. The toad understanding what Minato was planning and stood at a ready just in case the ape got any funny ideas. Minato went through a series of hand seals: snake, boar, sheep, rabbit, dog, rat, bird, and reluctantly, he did the final seal, but this was for preparation for Kyuubi's return. Horse. Shiki Fujin. Dead demon consuming seal, he exclaimed as he suddenly felt the chilling presence of the Shinigami behind him. Looking behind himself, Minato saw the Shinigami's demonic reaper form. If it had been under different circumstances, he would have pissed his pants, but all he did now in this situation was give him a sidelong glance and nodded to himself in preparation. "Let's go Gamabunta, one last time," he said solemnly to the toad boss. With a sad nod, the toad bunched up its legs and quickly jumped fast towards the primal ape. Bardock, in his primal state, was too absorbed in his victory and thus did not have time as the toad tackled him down onto the floor, pinning him in place. Just as he was about to punch the damn toad off of him, Gamabunta called out, "Now Gaki." Right. He then gave start to the ritual summoning and had the Shinigami do its job. Almost immediately, the Shinigami pierced its cold hand into the giant ape's chest, freezing it in place as it did so. As the paralysis of the jutsu took over his body, Bardock's mind went into overload as he faced another vision. Breathing hard from the battle and at what was going on, Bardock looked up to see he somehow got to be on another planet. The surface full of islands, the water green in color, and the sky in a sort of aqua color, the tree perfectly straight with perfectly oval or sphere-shaped branch and leaves. Bardock, a voice called out to him, making him look around for the voice. Seeing no one, he called out, "Who is it? Show yourself." "Who's calling me?" he demanded to the voice, as it was not the last voice he had heard from before. Seeing no one moving or coming, he tried again, "Come out. I know you're here." "Bardock," the voice said out loud instead of speaking to him in his mind. He looked back and saw a man with his hairstyle, but had orange and blue guy and blue wristbands on his wrists, with the kanji of his school of martial arts. "King Kai," it said, "you know who I am, don't you, Bardock?" asked the stranger to him. Knowing at instinctual level, he tried to reach out to the stranger from position. "Yes," he answered, his voice heavy emotion he didn't hardly know. "You're my son," he said with a shaky voice, as he continued to reach out to his offspring. "It's not too late, Atausen, to be different." His son, Kakarot, turned to him and showed that his face was an exact copy of his without his scar, but that face slowly blurred to show Frieza's face, smirking at him in an evil manner while chuckling darkly at him, and to be different than him. Goku's face then phased back. "When the time comes, you will remember everything, Atausen, so until we meet, stay strong." With that, everything went black and Bardock knew no more. On the outside, a peaceful smile found its way onto Bardock's beast-like face as the Shinigami ripped his soul out his body and sealed it into a baby. The baby named Uzumaki Naruto. Moments later, Sarutobi was frowning the situation presented to him. Not too long ago, after being reinstated as Hokage, he came out of a meeting regarding to the new Jinchuriki, Uzumaki Naruto. Though information had been let out that what was sealed into him was the Kyuubi by his old nemesis and warhawk, Danzo, who suggested the boy be sent to his division for safety measures, Sarutobi had corrected him by letting them know it was actually the beast that had beaten the Kyuubi that was sealed into the baby. That had made Danzo to increase his suggestion about drafting the baby into his division of Anbu, root. But Sarutobi had rectified that by saying that he would be under his protection since he was like sort of ape in nature and he'd be able to get help from his personal summons on how to take care of the baby. The other clans had agreed since it seemed logical since the beast that defeated the Kyuubi was ape-like in nature, so the old man would be able to come to terms with the primal ape instincts the boy might have. Though some of the council, particularly the civilian councils, seemed to view him as some sort of monster, the shinobi council saw him as a ray of hope in defeating the Kyuubi once and for all. Some of the council even offered up to protect the child under their clan names, namely the Nara, Akimichi, Yamanaka, Inyazuka, and the Hyuga clans. But aside from the civilian council's hate came one more clan's protests of the situation. The Uchiha clan head, Fugaku, seemed against having the such power running around loose if it wasn't within his grasp. But luckily, he was overruled by the majority of the council to be handing the child to them. Sarutobi sighed as he looked down at the baby that was Uzumaki Naruto. From when he first saw him, Naruto had bright blonde sun-kissed hair, healthy skin, and big vibrant blue eyes. But since the sealing, his blonde hair had matted down at the middle and let 3 big spikes go from the left and 2 of them going to the right, a little fleck of hair sticking out in the middle of his matted hair with a spiky mess of bangs showering over his forehead. The color of his hair was mostly still blonde, but the end of the spike were black, as if dipped into some hair dye. His left cheek had a new birthmark that closely resembled a battle scar as it was widened out a bit to look like one. When he looked at his eyes, they were a very dark navy blue color. But the most unique feature was the brown tail waving just above the boy's rear and right at the end of his spine. Ever since the sealing, the boy has been crying out to the world, wailing his head off as tears streamed down his eyes. But when the little baby saw him, it gurgled happily at him and wanted to be picked up. Sarutobi chuckled at the boy's enthusiasm and did as his instincts told him, which was also what the boy wanted him to do, as he picked up Naruto and raised him high up in the air. "You shall be our savior when the time comes. I am sorry that we people of this village have to burden you with that choice, but you are the only one capable of fending off the Kyuubi when the time comes." The reinstated Hokage thought with a heavy heart. But looking at the cheerful expression on Naruto's face, he too saw the ray of hope that was in this boy. It seems that fate has changed for the things to come on this planet, a weird squeaky voice said behind the old ninja. Sarutobi instantly had the baby back in the crib and pulled out a kunai and held it at a defensive position to the intruder. "Who are you?" the Sandaime Hokage demanded softly to the shadow that was in the corner of the room. "Well, aren't you on a tightrope?" the shadow joked lamely as it snorted and laughed at his own joke. Sarutobi just sweat-dropped at the person's horrible sense of humor. Seeing that his audience wasn't getting his joke, the shadow came out with a huff. "People these days have no sense of humor," said a short portly blue-skinned man. Yes, a blue-skinned man with two skin-like whiskers, a weird hat that had long antennas, round-framed sunglasses, and a black Chinese-like guy with the kanji on the back saying King Kai. "The name's King Kai, overseer of the West Sector quadrant of the universe," introduced the portly man. "What do you want?" Though Sarutobi would have been a bit skeptical about other being from other planets, this person was pushing that fact to the wayside now. He could feel the energy coming off this person, and it wasn't even chakra, but another type of energy he had never encountered. "Just coming in to let you know what that kid has inside of him," informed King Kai. "What?" Sarutobi nearly dropped his kunai, "But I thought it was a Bijuu," muttered the old man out loud. "Oh no, the Bijuu are demons that have made themselves lords and home of the world called Makai, but what you have here is an alien of a powerful race of beings," replied the portly blue-skinned man. Sarutobi would have argued about that aliens in no way existed. But seeing this man and what he knew about the known information of Bijuu were, he couldn't put up an argument. There was only one Ichibi, and that was the Yaokai Tanuki, Shukaku, who he knew was also sealed inside a child in the hidden village of Suna, he just didn't know which one. Seeing this as an opportunity to actually learn beyond that of what was known, Sarutobi eased his guard but didn't let it down completely. He put away his kunai with a sigh and pinched the bridge of his nose. Not wanting to appear rude now and try to salvage the situation, he gestured to the table nearby where there was some tea. "Would join me Kaidono?" he asked politely to the seemingly important figure. "Sure thing," replied the short portly man. But just as the two were about to go and sit down, they heard the baby squeal in excitement and looked to see a short monkey hanging off the side of the crib and poking at the little baby's stomach, making little Naruto giggle at the monkey's action. "No. Bubbles, come here, don't mess with the kid." King Kai rushed over to the monkey, only for the monkey to dash away at speeds that only Sarutobi knew was at least Anbo level. Seeing this, Sarutobi thought only one thing as he rubbed his temple a bit. "I'm getting too old for this shit." "Oh, I dunno, you pretty spry for old man at your age, Sarutobi," King Kai said as he chuckled a bit at the Sandaime Hokage's shocked expression. "Don't worry, I just read surface thoughts. I don't pry into other people's information or do mind control," assured the short blue portly man. Shaking off his shock of hearing his thought being heard out loud when he had never even said a word, Sarutobi sat down in tiredness as everything was going a bit too fast for him. "Now, please Kaidono, could you elaborate what is sealed inside of Naruto-chan here?" The Hokage gestured to the baby in the crib as its cheerful expression waved over Bubbles to play with him again. "What you have sealed inside the boy, or rather fused," seeing the raised eyebrow, King Kai waved it off as a thing to explain another time, "was an alien that is known as a Saiyan. The Saiyan race are known as planet conquerors. They were born for sole purpose of fighting and were the best of the best at it because of the talent and abilities in battle." "Planet conquerors?" questioned the Sandaime. It seemed so unlikely, but the power displayed by this supposed Saiyan had proved otherwise, as an Ichibi would not be able to stand at all at the fighting prowess and power of the Kyuubi no Kitsune, since it was known it was the Lord of Makai itself. "Yes, conquerors. Their abilities in battle were second to none with the right sort of training and experience gained in battle," answered King Kai as he sipped some of the tea on the table. "Nice tea," he muttered under his breath. "Or?" Sarutobi caught as it seemed the blue short portly man was implicating what was fused with Naruto was no more. "Yes, the tyrant that ordered this race of people to become even more known as planet conquerors has just destroyed a majority of the race, along with a planet, Vegeta," King Kai informed as he saw Sarutobi go pale at this news. "Along with Naruto here, there are only 4 other known survivors, sadly none of them female either. It really saddened to see such potential be wasted and destroyed. The whole race could have been a planet of strong warriors and heroes too." "Dear Kami," he thought to himself, not really caring that King Kai could hear his thoughts. But what King Kai said next made him almost shit his pants. "Bardock, the Saiyan that is fused with little Naruto here, pales in comparison to the tyrant, Frieza. It's like comparing a really small puddle with your largest ocean to it, the gap is just too great." Now Sarutobi may have been skeptical about aliens, but hearing the truth and nothing but the truth being laced into King Kai's voice made him realize the situation now. But with the potential here, there could be hope. That made Sarutobi see a bit light of hope at hearing those words. Many years ago, a scout had come to put a price on this planet. Some events happened that made the scout put this planet off the market. So for you've nothing to worry about from Frieza himself. That made Sarutobi relax, even if wanted to know the specifics of it. He wasn't going to pry if he didn't need to, but that won't stop others from trying to conquer your world, okay? This was just really stressing him out now, but with the right training, Naruto could be the only hope you have of defending this world from such beings. That made Sarutobi go wide-eyed a bit, looking over at the little baby that was Naruto playing with insanely fast monkey named Bubbles. He really couldn't see such a child gaining such ungodly power. But then he remembered the word King Kai used in the conversation they just had. "What do you mean fused Kai Dono?" inquired the Sandaime. Seeing the confusion in the man's face, King Kai opted to explain Naruto's new condition. "You have to understand the technique you called Shiki Fujin was meant to be used for demons, and the Shinigami assigned was only meant for that job alone. But it has come to my attention from Ryukai intelligence that since Bardock was not a demon, he had to use a technique known as fusion. Though the technique requires a ritual formation from two people and the two people being just about the same height and exact level of power, the Shinigami had to revise the technique and fuse both Bardock and Naruto into one being," King Kai explained. That made Sarutobi ponder about this information. If this were true, wouldn't that mean, yes, Sandaime Hokage, it means that Naruto is part Saiyan now and has the fighting prowess and capabilities of a Saiyan himself? King Kai answered the old man's coming question. But if what you're saying is true, wouldn't that also mean he would have this Bardock's memories as well? Sarutobi pondered about that. Would the child's mind be able to cope with such information all at once and be able to stay sane? The thought of crazed and powered up baby raising the village was weird but terrifying vision. Yes, he has Bardock's memories, but it's all locked up, but King Kai trailed off as he got Sarutobi's utmost attention now. It seemed King Kai wanted him to fully privy to this information alone. It seems he has also received Bardock's newfound ability as well. You see, not too long ago, Bardock and some of his comrades went to a planet and annihilated the inhabitants because it seemed Frieza had heard of an ability to read and delve into people's minds if one were to stay on the planet. That almost sounds like the jutsus the Yamanakas use, Sarutobi noted. Hearing and nodding at the thought he heard, King Kai continued, Bardock was struck down and given the power by a surviving inhabitant of the planet, with the sole desire of letting Bardock see his and his race's end at the hands of Frieza, an act of cruel revenge one would say. But it seemed a vision of his future had calmed him enough to accept his fate of being fused with little Naruto here. What it was I don't know. Turning away from looking at Naruto, King Kai cast a serious look at the old ninja. I suggest you train the boy in handling such a technique. I understand you have a clan who have what you would call a Kekkei Genkai that deal with the mind powers. Yes, if what you say is true, it would be wise to train him in using such abilities within safe boundaries. Sarutobi didn't want to see Naruto go insane if he was not be able to control a power he couldn't handle. If he could help this rising savior of theirs, he would do what he could. It was all he could do at the moment. I will see about talking with the Yamanaka clan head about this later on, Sarutobi informed King Kai. Good, when the time comes, I will come and help with the kids' training as well. Seeing the raised eyebrow from Sarutobi, he explained further, what Bardock used all his life was not the energy you people call chakra, rather, it is called Kai. It is the physical energy you people mix with the mental energy, which is Kai. What you'll be trying to help him use first is chakra, and when it is good enough, I will come and increase his usage of Kai. What are the capabilities of this Kai? Asked the old ninja. Many usages that your ninjas haven't seemed to explore yet. As you may have seen, the blast Bardock used from his mouth could be used from the palms and even fingers points. With just the right amount of charge of Kai, he could have blown this 3 mountain in one blast. It can increase strength and speed to near impossible levels, much like your Taijutsu specialists, only without the harmful usages of 8 chakra gates that are within the body. And it will allow the power of flight for person. Hearing of these capabilities, Sarutobi now knew why these techniques weren't explored. They didn't have the implications of a shinobi. Blowing up things left and right would get you discovered in mere seconds and only be useful in an all-out fight. Only the last 2 abilities he heard seemed to hold favor for a shinobi, since increased strength and speed would allow a person to sneak by unnoticed or come out in a fight in good condition. And flight would let one travel more freely and be able to attack enemy forces unnoticed until it was too late if the technique was used in the right way, and there are many other abilities that Kai could be used in. Sarutobi hummed in thought. With all of his training that Sarutobi would personally supervise and instruct, mind training to gain control of the mental power Naruto has, and personal Taijutsu instructions and technique moves King Kai himself would provide, Naruto would be able to have a good arsenal to defeat the coming Kyuubi's attack. Sarutobi hoped that this Bardock had made the Kyuubi gravely injured and allow them the time to fight the demon when Naruto was good and ready. But that was only one problem. If they could get him to be more powerful than Bardock and Kyuubi put together, Naruto could defend this world from coming conquerors or destroyers. And if they had the option, send Naruto to take out this Frieza, such evil should not exist and should be snuffed out. Finally, after a long silence, Sarutobi nodded, it was for the best. When Naruto would be able to, they would start his training immediately. Even though it sounded like they were not far off from what Danzo would have done to the child, Sarutobi would allow Naruto to have the companionship of friends, whereas Danzo would say there were a weakness that would hold him back. He was not making a weapon, he was making a hero that will shine brighter than the sun that shines over their planet. Well, it's time for me to go, King Kai announced to the old ninja. The short portly man then turned to Bubbles, who was looking at Naruto's small sleeping form. Bubbles, come on Bubbles, it's time to go, King Kai quietly called as he didn't want to wake up the little hero in the crib. The monkey grunted and oohed as it made its way over to King Kai, till the next time old Sarutobi, a little tick, made its way to the Sandame's forehead at being called old. One bit of information about Saiyans before I go, King Kai cut off any retort Sarutobi would have made, do not let Naruto see and be under the light of a full moon. If you do, you'll have another giant ape on your hands. The source of the transformation is his tail, but it is also what give him an extra boost in his abilities, so to cut it off will greatly diminish the boy's powers, so do not cut it off unless absolutely necessary, and with that, both him and Bubbles left in a flash of light. Sitting there in silence, the old man let the tick-tock of the old father clock go back and forth, sound throughout the living area he was in. Sighing a bit, he got up and went over to Naruto's side and looked down at Naruto's innocent sleeping face. Thinking about the power the boy would gain, he really hoped the boy would not be corrupted by it like his prized student, Orochimaru. Thinking that made him strengthen his resolve to train the boy the right and better way than Orochimaru was. You are the light of hope for our world, Naruto, Sarutobi spoke softly as he brushed a strand of spiked blonde and black hair aside from Naruto's face, and hopefully, you will gain the will of fire your father and your mother had when they defended this village. With that, he left the room and turned off the light. Letting one last gaze pass at the crib in the room as he said a few ninjutsu on the room. He was not going to take the risk that Danzo was done with trying to obtain Naruto for his own ends, not once would he do that. 4 years later. Hey Ino-chan, come on, let's play, little Naruto called out to the platinum blonde-haired girl that was waiting for her father's cooking to be done inside the back of a flower shop. The little boy was wearing a black and green shirt with a red swirl symbol on the back of his Chinese-like shirt, 2 red arm guards worn on, and black Anbu pants with martial arts slipper and white socks. His tail coming out the back of his pants, swaying around playfully as it showed his mood now. Around his head was a red headband. For some reason, it just felt right to wear that color of headband on his head. Turning around, Ino got in front of her at Tausen and brandished a stick, you ain't getting any, you jerk. Ino exclaimed as she swung her stick at Naruto, only for the boy to jump clear over the attack and land on her back, making her eat some dirt. Chuckling at the two kids' antics, Inoichi handed Naruto a piece of a burger to him, nice to see you again, Naruto-chan, little Naruto, you ready for your session of training today, Inoichi asked as the boy's face lit up. Naruto nodded as he happily ate the burger, oi Aji, pops, he got Inoichi's attention as he continued to eat the burger while sitting on Ino's back, are we going to learn a new jutsu today, Naruto asked excitedly at the thought of learning a new jutsu. Inoichi shook his head, not yet Naruto-chan, you have to get better control of your chakra in order to use our jutsus, besides, you already have plenty of jutsus already, Inoichi noted to the pouting Naruto. Seriously, the boy seemed like he had the Sharingan engraved into his whole being. Why just the other day, he used the Kaiten Kikyaku no Jutsu, fire release. Great fireball technique when he saw it only once and used up his massive reserves to make a regular-sized attack, well regular-sized for an adult, but for a kid, it was quite the accomplishment on his first try. The boy's learning curve was truly amazing. He oddly noted he was like that Itachi kid, but only opposite in every way. Whereas Itachi seemed cold to everyone and distanced himself from them while also being indifferent about certain situations, Naruto would warm his way into anyone's hearts and would voice his innocent opinions about what was on his mind. Itachi seemed to cast a cold dark aura around him, whereas Naruto gave a warm bright energy about him. At first, the village civilians seemed to hate him for what he was, but after hearing the coming threat about the Kyuubi and nothing else other than that, they immediately had second thoughts and tried their best to welcome the child. It didn't take long for Naruto to worm his way into their hearts with his innocence and cheerful mood. Some villagers were still stubborn and still called him a monster for what he was, but the boy seemed to not care and kept on with his life and training. When he asked about why the training with his clan, the Hokage had said an informant had told him that Naruto had a Kekkei Genkai similar to his clan. The delving into one's mind and an ability they knew they didn't have, visions of coming futures. It was the Hokage's wish that Inoichi would help Naruto deal with this power and be able to also strengthen their own clan by examining the extent of Naruto's mind powers. Inoichi looked back at the two kids to see Ino trying to latch onto Naruto's tail. "Let me pet it," she demanded to Naruto. "No, it makes me feel weird when you pet it," Naruto said as he continued to eat and run from Ino. Aside from making him feel weird, he would always felt weak when she squeezed it. It made Naruto resolve in getting rid of that weakness. How was he going to become the best ninja the world has ever known if he had such an obvious weakness? Since the beginning of his training when he turned 4, Naruto had proclaimed to himself that he would become the best so he could beat the bad guys who would hurt his home. He remembered the thing Ijiji had told him that his race of people were a group of warriors set on to being the best fighters around and that he had the power to be just like that but was asked what he would do that with that power if obtained it. That was when he exclaimed that he would be the best ninja in the world since it was the only thing he knew that was a fighter at the time. "Please, Naruto-kun," Ino pleaded as she stopped and started to use what every little girl used instinctively, the puppy dog eye no jutsu. Her eyes started to water up and her lip quivered as if she was about to cry. Seeing this, Naruto started to wave his arms about comically. "Ah, come on Ino-chan, don't cry." He called out in worry as he rushed over to her. Just as he was about to reach her, he saw her immediately smile mischievously. Before he knew it, he was tackled by a giggling Ino. "I got you Naruto-kun," she exclaimed as she latched onto Naruto and started to pet his little monkey tail, making Naruto blush for reasons unknown to him. "Alright you two, break it up," Inoichi said as he chuckled at the sight. Those two had really hit it off since Naruto started his training with the clan. He had also became good friends with the other two kids of his teammates. Shikamaru likes him because the two seem to get good time of relaxing the same way he did since they just lazed about, watching the clouds go by. Little Chaoji took a liking to him immediately as he found out firsthand the appetite of a Saiyan, not that Inoichi knew what Naruto was. And Ino just seemed to click with the little boy. If he didn't know better, he'd say his little princess was head over heels for the boy. But that would only be made certain in the future. Ino let go of Naruto reluctantly as she listened to her Atausen, but almost glumped Naruto again as he gave that usual grin of his. That grin that always made her feel good and want to be with Naruto always. She didn't know what this feeling was, but she really didn't want to let that go. "Now why don't you go and play with that Haruno girl you became friends with the other day," Inoichi suggested to her. Pouting a bit at being taken away from her favorite teddy bear, Naruto, she did as she was told and went for find her new friend, Sakura. The girl needed her anyway, the girl had no confidence whatsoever in herself and it was up to her help her new friend out. "Now then, let's go and get your training started Naruto-chan," Inoichi said as he led the little boy towards the backyard of the flower shop the Yamanaka clan owned. A few minutes later found Naruto meditating over a pond that was in the back of the flower shop. His body not falling into the knee-deep water as he had already mastered the water walking technique after trying it out in a few tries. Since the time he had started to get blurred visions he couldn't make out, with the pained headaches they came with, he had come to rely on the calming techniques he had learned from Inoichi Oyaji. Not even wincing as vision came to him, he calmly looked through the hazed fog as he saw an old man with an extravagant shirt with flowers and strange trees on them, Hawaiian shirt and blue pants that were similar to his Anbu pants but were close off at the ankles with the same type of slippers he had on. The old man's frail-looking body turned into that of a bodybuilder. The man's massively large and pumped arms going in a circular manner before cupping both hands to the right side of his midsection. He then heard the man starting to call out his attack as a shine of energy started to appear in between the man's cupped hands Kamehameha. At the end of his spoken technique, he thrust both hands forward with the two wrists touching each other, with the both hand on top of each other. The energy in between his hands letting loose a blast of blue energy surging forward and parting the waters that were in front of him. Once the blast impacted what looked like some sort of battalion of ships and great explosion occurred, blasting the ships out of water. Seeing this jutsu being done, he quickly left the backyard, Surigatagawa Ejibi, Naruto said in breath as he sped past Inoichi. What was that about? Inoichi wondered, he looked up and frowned, it's not even the end of his training. Seeing this as an ominous sign, Inoichi quickly flared his chakra twice, letting those who knew the boy was up to something. Not that anyone didn't trust him, but him being sealed with an unknown beast didn't mean they were going to let their guards down. Once Naruto made it as far as he could from Konoha, never noticing his actions had attracted several people's attention. Thinking back to the jutsu that old man in his vision had used, he started to analyze the jutsu he saw. With his incredible learning curve, he noticed that the energy to power the attack was not one of chakra, as the energy could not be exerted in such a way and only be projected as far as one has control over their chakra. No, from what he could this jutsu use just one part of the energy of chakra. But just what was? As if in a trance, he started to instinctively summon his Kai. Cupping his hands in front of with his wrists touching each other, he started to call his Kai to them, Ka slowly bringing it to his midsection. He then stopped and locked his post-ion in place, his knees bunched up in a ready position. A ball of blue Kai was summoned up into his hands. He voice started increase as the sphere of blue Kai shined and ready. With one final burst of Kai, he thrust his hands forward in the starting position he had them in and called out, Hi. Just as Naruto had pulled off the move, Maido Gai, Yamanka Inoichi, Nara Shikaku, Akamichi Chauza, Inyazuka Tsume, Hyuga Hiashi, and the Sandaime Hokage arrived at the scene. They witnessed the scene of great power as Naruto sent a blue beam of destruction that tore and carved a path through the forest that was away from Konoha. When the blast hit the ground, there was great explosion, a great big cloud of dust, shrapnel, and dirt exploding from the point of impact. At seeing this, even those stoic or in control of their emotions had big wide eyes with gaping jaws. I don't know wasn't kidding about the Saiyan's destructive capabilities. The Sandaime then turned to Naruto and could only gape in amazement. Not even a year into his training and Naruto already instinctively tapping into the energy known as Kai. He was already proving to have great difficulty with his chakra, but even with that, he was already at least high genin with the training he had received so far. Seeing the sheepish expression on Naruto's face, the Sandaime chuckled, the act of Naruto's expression showing that he hadn't meant to put that much power in his attack and was sorry for what he had done. He is already becoming the ray of hope we wanted him to become. Sheepishly grinning and scratching the back of his head, Naruto analyzed what he had just done. Okay, that move takes time to form, so I'll need to speed up the process and get a precise timing on how to release the energy that I just used. I'll also need to train in using that energy as well as using my chakras separately, this way I won't mix the two energies and make the mistake of sucking myself dry or blowing my hands off by using the wrong energy usage. Plus, it would better if I increase the reserves of that new energy I used so that the constant feat of using that attack won't drain me as much as it did just now. As he finished his thoughts, he could feel his leg weaken and fell back on his butt. Whatever that energy was, it seemed to come from the physical energy of my chakra, he noted, as he knew he was a bit of stamina freak. If everyone had heard his thoughts, they would have thought he was already growing teenager instead of a boy just entering his childhood. 2 years later after that incident. Calm down Naruto, we'll get these on you soon enough, King Kai chided the small mixed hair-colored boy with a monkey tail. Naruto was already beginning to be taller than most his age, as he was already about the size of an 8-year-old at the age of 6, probably because of the fusion, King Kai noted as he strapped on the new arm and ankle weights on Naruto. They were colored red and were really thick as they covered half of his forearm and half of his calves. Lifting up the new weights, Naruto immediately pouted, these don't weigh a thing, Kai-Aji-san, Naruto said in a disappointed tone. That's because I haven't set the weights my boy, King Kai replied as snorted and chuckled in his weird manner. He was going to get a kick at getting Naruto's face in the dirt. Oh yes, he would pay him back for blowing up that toilet he was using with a cherry bomb. King Kai almost had a sadistic smirk as he charged the weights into the arm and ankle bands. The effect was almost instantaneous as the weight bands almost tripled in size, making the ones on his arms take up most of his forearms and the ones on his ankle take most of his forelegs. The weights not only stretching out but also growing an incredible width. Naruto went bug-eyed as he was sent crashing into the earth. Naruto panted a bit before he tried to lift himself up from the ground. But every time it seemed like he was about to get off the ground, he would just fall back down. Almost seeing this as impossible, Naruto just about gave up, but his will and determination came back with a vengeance, and the thought of his extinct race frowning at him came to mind, their eyes looking at him in disappointment. No. I am a Saiyan, I will not let some little weight stop me from becoming the best. I will not give up. He started to chant the last sentence in his head as adrenaline started to pump through his veins, forcing him to go against the strain that was burning his muscles, screaming for him to stop and let the weights be taken off. King Kai was now wearing a slightly shocked face. He knew the prowess and talents of Saiyans when it came to combat, but Naruto seemed to be something special. The weights he had put him on was just a form of prank, just to get back at him. But seeing him actually start lifting up the weights, it was astonishing at the rate Naruto was excelling in the usage of his abilities and the usage of Kai, and chakra he was putting to use. Ever since King Kai had come to start teaching him the ways of using such energies separately, Naruto has been training day and night in the usage of them. It seemed that the fusion had unlocked a potential that both Naruto and Bardock had, as it allowed them to instantly analyze a technique and break it down to its baser components, as seen when he had miraculously used Old Man Master Roshi's technique, the Kamehameha Wave. It also doubled their confidence, and as the memories of Bardock slowly trickled into Naruto's developing mind, their personalities started to combine to make a slightly arrogant man, but still confident as noted before, with a determination to see their abilities were fine-tuned to a perfection. The Kai was an easy subject as Bardock had used the energy all of his life, while Chakra was a bit harder, but nonetheless was workable, since Naruto's body carried the genetic structure of the people of this planet. But Kai was a difficult piece of energy as neither Bardock or Naruto had ever used such a thing. Kai and Kai could do the same kind of damage to the surrounding area much like Chakra. Kai raised the physical aspects of the body and allowed one to use its energy to attack from afar, but Kai strengthened the awareness of a person along with the usage of their minds and was more focused on being used against demons and other evil apparitions. Since Kai didn't affect demons much unless it was a massive and destructive amount of it being blasted at them. With the combination of both Chakra, it made a good balance of taking on both alien and demon origin enemies. So King Kai had opted to teach Naruto on how to draw on all three types of energy to survive his coming encounters. Seeing Naruto almost stand up, he chuckled a bit, "That boy will go far, I can really see that," King Kai noted as he stood from a distance. Seeing as he was about to stand up fully, he summoned his Kai and powered up to the full. The air around him warping a bit and giving him a blue fire outline as he stayed powered up. Lifting himself from the air, another lesson he got from Kai Ajusan, he flew straight up towards the sky and looked to see horizon above the trees and forest of the outskirts of Konoha. "Let's do this," he exclaimed as he started to send a barrage of punches and kicks. His knowledge of Taijutsu showing through into his own personalized style hand-to-hand combat. It was an odd mix of that Goken Ryu, Gyuken Ryu, and his own style of fighting. While the punches and kicks were hard and fast, he was also practicing charging the three energies he learned to use from King Kai. If he could get a good feel on how to focus each energy into each punch, he could be ready for any kind of adversary. Human, alien, demon, or whatever else they were would feel his wrath when he unleashed himself onto them. "Naruto-kun. Naruto-kun," called a little girl's voice. Looking down from his position, he saw Ino was looking for him. He could just tell from her energy signature that it was her. And that sweet flower smell that came off of her was only unique to her. It soothed him in a way, really. "Boy, Ino-chan, I'm up here," Naruto called out cheerfully as he waved his arms around to get her attention. Looking up, Ino just sighed, having seen this before had not made her freak out as any normal person would. She was really the first person to find out that he could do such a thing really. He had come to her house and started to babble on about getting a new sensei and how he showed him how to fly. As the thought of people flying would have made her jump in enjoyment and make her demand he take her flying, she was starting to get some common sense in, so she asked if she could show her. It wasn't that she didn't trust her Naruto-kun's words, rather, she was worried he was fibbed to and that he was being tricked by a meanie stranger. But when she saw him hovering off the ground without any strings attached and she had thoroughly checked if there were any around him, she had squealed and asked sweetly and turned on her puppy dog Ai no Jutsu to take her flying around. It had been the best time in her life as she felt the wind drip through her hair and face and her alone time with her teddy bear. "Naruto-kun, come down her," Ino demanded as she stomped her foot onto the ground. Blinking a bit at her attitude, he knew he didn't do anything to her or her friends. Which further confused as to what was going on, so he just shrugged and floated down to her. Once he got down onto the ground, he greeted her with his usual cheerful grin. "Aheyo, Ino-chan," Naruto greeted as he looked at her almost serious face, but it was kind of ruined since she was only 6 years old. Ino sighed and went right to the point for her looking for him. "Naruto-kun, you know we're going to attending the ninja academy, remember?" she reminded the blonde. "We are?" he asked confusedly. Damn. Was it already that time? He thought he had more time to get his technique perfected more before then, not that the academy would stop him training, but his time used for training would be cut drastically because of it. Sighing at her best male friend's forgetfulness, she knew his mind was on nothing but Taijutsu and Jutsus and nothing else. She just shook her head. "Yeah, you dope, you do have all of your supplies ready, right?" She leaned her body at him with her hands curled up into fist and were situated on her hips. "Yeah, OG-chan got them ready for me just the other day, if I remember right," Naruto answered back to her. Nodding at his answer, she sighed once again and started to make circles with her foot on the ground. "Naruto, the boys and girls will be in different classes until we get into the last 3 years of the academy," Ino informed the blonde. Frowning at that news, that meant that he wouldn't see Ino-chan in any of his classes for 3 years, but he immediately smiled as he remembered Shikamaru and Chaoji. But seeing the worry still on his best friend's face, he did as his instincts told him to and hugged her, making sure not to crush her with weights on his arms, which was what Ino had just wanted him to do. She sighed in contentment and leaned her head against his chest. She didn't know what this feeling was she always had with her teddy bear, but she always liked it. "Don't worry, Ino-chan, we'll always be with each other, right to the end," Naruto said as he gave her his famous grin that always seemed to brighten everyone's day. Looking up at him, she nodded and enthusiastically with a big smile of her own, she replied back to him. She then got a bit of a blush on her face, as she knew it would be embarrassing at what she was going to do next. So quickly, she jumped up towards his head and pecked him on the cheek. Seeing that her task was done, he dashed off back home, leaving a mildly shocked Naruto behind on the forest trail. "I'll see you again, Naruto-kun," she called out to him as she ran with big smile and blush on her face. Chuckling at Naruto's expression and what had happened just now, King Kai finally came into Naruto's vision. He oddly noted that the boy seemed to already having gotten used to the weights, which were at least 500 pounds. Waving his hand a bit in front of the boy's face, it seemed the boy was still in a bit of shock at what his best friend had just done. Chuckling, King Kai knew only one thing that would break the trance the boy was in. He cupped his hands and breathed in a big breath. "Breakfast is ready," he hollered into the boy's right ear. "Breakfast? Where? Where? Ooh, I hope it's some of that special ramen Am-chan always seems to make for me, or that special batch of rice balls Hina-chan always makes, or the eggs. Bacon and hash browns Ten-chan always cooks for me." The boy then rabbled on and on about what foods he would eat from many other cute little villager girls that always seemed happy to satiate the boy's endless pit that was his stomach. King Kai laughed louder this time. This boy was already beefcake for the ladies, and he just seemed too innocent to notice. As Naruto continued to rabble on about food, an evil presence was growing within a desolate valley, very far away from the fire country and away from any close hidden village. In the valley showed a glowing red sphere that pulsated every now and again. After a few minutes, it died down to show a blood-red sphere with smoke rising from its hard shell. There was then the sound of cracking heard, and not a second later, a clawed hand shot out from the top of the shell. The demon that was inside the seemingly large egg had one thought, and that was revenge. And that person who it wanted revenge against was ringing in its head, and that person's name was Bardock, thought the demon darkly as everything turned black. The life of a fusion ninja. Knocking on the gates of the Sarutobi clan home, Ino waited for someone to come and greet her at the door. Not having to wait long, the door opened and saw what she thought was a jounin. He had black hair and black beard with a smoke in his mouth, very tanned skin, and wearing the standard jounin attire with a sash hanging off his waist that had the symbol of the fire country on the flap of it. The man was Sarutobi Asuma, who looked down at the smiling Ino. "Ah, Ino, you've made just in time. Guy is just about finished sparring with Naruto." Asuma said he put out his cigarette. He wouldn't want to get an earful from Kurenai about him being irresponsible about smoking around kids. Seeing as Asuma was letting her in, Ino bowed to the older man. "Arigato, Asuma-san," Ino said politely before heading inside, already knowing which way to go. Not hard really, since the sound of battle cries and the sound of combat was ringing out the area around. Humming into the dojo area of the Sarutobi compound, Ino sat calmly near the entrance and took out a candy bar to snack on as she watched Guy-san going up to par with her teddy bear, Naruto-kun. Ino sighed in a bit exasperation. Those two were just a bunch of taijutsu fanatics as far as she knew. Not that had anything against it, but she often found Naruto-kun talking about training methods and other related matters with Mito Guy when he wasn't hanging around with her and her friends. But, looking at his cheerful expression as he continued to fight with Guy, both of them without their weights on, though Naruto's clothing was just as weighted as well, Ino couldn't really fault him. She liked it when Naruto was happy, and fighting seemed so much a part of him, it seemed he thrived for battle. For some, that would have them worried about his battle lust, but Ino liked that part of him. It meant that if situation ever called for it, he would switch to a more serious mood if any of his loved ones were in danger, and she knew he would always be there for her if she was ever in trouble. Why, just last night, the day she had pecked him on the cheek, she had called him over to water fountain in the center of Konoha. Let's just say there is one. I'm trying set the mood really. Flashback. It was dark night, the stars and moon only being the source of light, since lights in the area were turned off. Ino had snuck out of her house and had quickly gotten Naruto's attention by throwing rocks at his window. She never noticed the Anbu just watching at what was happening in amusement. The scene was a little cute. As Naruto peeked his head out, he found a note next to his window with suction rubber arrowed pinned on it. That was all Ino saw before she dashed away towards their meeting area. Shaking a bit, she wrapped her arms around herself and started to rub them. It was starting to get cold. But when she looked back up to the stars, she smiled as she saw a shadowed form flying towards her. She knew only one person who could be up that high and stay up there, as if gliding down by some invisible force. "Naruto-kun, down here," she called out to the flying figure. Humming in, Naruto landed a few feet from her. He then jogged up to her and cocked his head to the side with his usual big grin. "What's up, Ino-chan? Is something the matter?" he suddenly asked in a bit of worry. Looking down at the ground, Ino made circles in the dirt with her right foot with her hands behind her back. "Well, like I said, we're going to the ninja academy." She then looked up at him with a bit of sad smile. "And when we graduate, we might not be on the same teams that they assign each other," she informed him of her worry. Scratching his head a bit in confusion, he really couldn't see what she was worried about. It's not like they weren't going to see each other ever again. If they even did, well, he really couldn't think of anything to say to what she was talking about. But then a light bulb dinged over his head. "It's alright, we'll always see each other, just like I said earlier," Naruto said with the brightest grin he could muster. It always seemed to calm her when she saw him do that. Shaking her head a bit at the boy in front of her, she sighed. He just couldn't understand how the girl felt really. Well, neither could she since she didn't even know why she was doing this. He then got an idea. "How about this, since I'm aiming to be the best ninja in the world, how about you become the best kunoichi in the world," he suggested with the same grin on his face. Thinking a bit as she cocked her head to the side and putting a finger on her lip, she happily nodded. It would mean they would be different from everyone else and be with each other forever, just like he promised her. She nodded happily. She then thought about their differences and knew he would probably only need it up to the graduating day at the academy to already being the best ninja in the world, so she opted for one more thing. "Hey, I know you're really strong, so I know you'll already make your dream come true before I do, so could we make a promise to each other?" she asked a bit pleadingly. Wondering why she asked that, he just internally shrugged and nodded to her. "If ever you get to become the best ninja in the world, and if I'm ever in a bind," she then looked up to the stars with a bit of fantasy in her eyes, "you'll come save me, alright?" But the squeaky sounds of his eyes blinking, Naruto just looked at her for a moment before saying, "Nani?" he asked confusedly as he tilted his head to the side. "If ever I'm in trouble, my hero will come rescue me," she looked at him with a cute smirk on her face. "I want to experience that at least once," Ino said as she sat down on the edge of fountain. Still not getting it, he looked at her. "Nani? Come on. Promise me." Ino insisted as she looked at him imploringly. Seeing her pleadings, Naruto nodded with a big smile on his face. He said cheerfully, he'd do anything for his friends, and if it was a little promise like that, he'd do it. End of flashbacky. After that, the two had parted ways back to their homes. Ino had slept quite peacefully after that with a content smile across her face. Naruto was just happy all the time really. "Come on you two, it's almost time to go the academy," Ino called out to them. "Right, Naruto-kun, it's time we finish this." The two locked each other in grapple, Guy towering over the boy as he clasped onto Naruto's smaller hands. One would think he was the one in control of the fight, but Naruto had trained with weights that made even Guy cringe at and was equal to Guy in strength in his small body. The two parted, Guy standing off away on the grass as Naruto landed on top of a boulder. The dojo had both a floor wood but also had an outside for those who were too strong to be held on the inside, so the two were on the outdoor part of the dojo. The two then jumped into the air and started to send kicks and punches towards each other. Well, Guy had to adapt to such fighting. It wasn't that hard since he was a taijutsu fanatic really. Naruto was used to such fighting since the fusion with Bardock had put an instinct in him on how to fight aerial opponents. But it seemed Guy got the upper hand as he got surprise air roundhouse kick connected into Naruto's face, sending him splashing into the pond that nearby for Suiten jutsu use. "You're getting sloppy, Naruto-kun, you flames of youth need to burn brighter." Guy then let out roaring laugh as he saw the boy soaked in water. But then a big splash hit him and bucket followed to hit him in the face, letting Ino know that Naruto had filled and chucked it at Guy, who fell down in surprise. "Oh yeah, who's getting sloppy now?" Naruto said as he was crouched down on the floor, his white karate Guy soaked and clinging to his body. He then yelped in surprise as Guy hit him over the head with same bucket. "I swear, those two," Ino sighed in exasperation. Moments later, the two were walking their way to the ninja academy, Ino walking as any normal person would, just walking towards the school on the ground. But Naruto was a bit different in his walking, as he was just walking like normal on a fence nearby. The fence itself was very narrow, and any person who didn't have training would have either fallen off or would have hit their privates in between their legs. That might not matter to girls, but guys would have something to worry about that one. "Naruto-kun, are you using that kai of yours again?" Ino asked as she looked at Naruto, who was impossibly keeping balance on the loose fence that seemed to rock with the wind. "Nah, I'm just training some more and trying to keep my balance," Naruto answered to her with a slight shrug. "What good is that, you can fly already," Ino said as she really didn't see what that training would do if he could fly. "It helps me keep balance when I don't fly, you wouldn't think it, but it's kind of hard to keep yourself straight in the air if you don't have the balance and control," Naruto lectured a bit to his best friend. Ino sounded as she pondered about that a bit. She has a little usage in the energies he had, but she wasn't as proficient as Naruto. "Hey, if you have a best friend who could fly and break boulder with nothing but his pinky, wouldn't you want to learn how to do that?" The two then made it to the gates of the ninja academy, parent and children all over the courtyard front of the academy. Off to the side, they saw Ino's Atausen, along with the Sandaime, waving them over to them. But before the two of them could even get to them, Ino sensed something. Snatching it out of the air, she saw to her surprise that it was a rose. Blinking a bit, she looked to see a bug-eyed looking boy with black hair that seemed to curl up at his ends. "Yosh, you must be really skilled to catch my throw out of the air like that," his eyes shining as he came up to her. "You are also very beautiful." He then puffed his chest out and pointed to him. "Very well, I will be the one to protect you and be your boyfriend from now on," he proclaimed proudly. Those who saw and heard this wondered if the boy was all there, some of the kids saying he was infected with the cooties. Ino just continued to blink at him. This was supposed to be her knight in shining armor. She shook her head. "No way. If anyone is gonna be that." She then turned her head to Naruto and blushed a bit. That's nice, but could you excuse me," she said as tried to get past him. But the boy held out his arm to block her path. "It is only fair that I shall know the name of my Hime princess," he somewhat demanded. Seeing no harm, she said, "Yamanaka Ino." She introduced herself, but was getting really impatient now at this boy. "Man, Ino-chan, already getting popular with the guys," Naruto joked to his best friend. Seeing the familiarity with his Hime, the boy pointed at Naruto. How are you familiar with Hime?" he demanded with a bit of fire in his eyes. "Who are you?" Blinking a bit at the probably a year older person in front of him, Naruto pointed to himself. "Well, Ino-chan and I have been best friends since I can remember, and my name is..." "Wait, is not one's custom to give out their names themselves first?" The fire that in the boy's eyes then returned with full force. "Then my name I shall give you," Naruto sputtered a bit at this interruption. This boy seemed a little too similar to someone he knew closely. "I am the next Jujutsu specialist of Konoha, the unbeatable rock that holds against the tides of enemies. My might will strike fear into the hearts of my enemies. My peers will call me the next green beast of Konoha, age 7, Rock Lee." The boy then pulled off a bastardized form of the Goken Ryu. Then it clicked into Naruto's mind on who the kid reminded him of, Mito guy. Only someone like him would act like that. Seems he's got a fan. Naruto noted wryly how he felt for the kid now. He had nothing against the green spandex wearing jounin, but even he was a little weird for his taste. "And it would seem that I have a rival in love for the hand of Hime," the newly introduced Rock Lee announced before charging in at him at speeds that were beyond a human. Naruto, though, wasn't human, so he easily jumped over the hard right hook that was going for him. He noted the boy was actually using Kai. Maybe Ajiji is teaching it nowadays, but Naruto pushed that aside for another time as he turned over in the air in a flip. "I'm Uzumaki Naruto, sole user of the Tenjo Tenjiryu, heaven and earth style." He then took off and tossed his bag over to Ino. "Take this for me for a minute, would you, Ino-chan?" Naruto called out to her as he threw his bag, Ino easily catching it in her arms with a sigh. "Boys, I accept your challenge," Naruto said as he got into his newly named Tenjo Tenjiryu starting stance. The reason for the name Tenjo Tenj was that the style was similar to what the name suggested. Being that his hard hits were powerful enough to break hard boulders, it was what was referenced to Earth. But while doing so, he also pushed energy into the opponent's internal organs and bursts the energy within to make more damage, thus like the name of Jyoken, heaven. It was really plain out hitting hard with energy, a bit of skill, and a whole lot of instinct, nothing more, nothing less, just like how any Saiyan fought. Off to the side, Inoichi was about to step in, but the appearance of Guy and the held-out hand of the Sandame stopped him. "Shouldn't we stop this, Hokage-sama? Naruto-chan's going to floor that boy." "No, I think this will benefit him a bit," Tsurutobi said calmly as he gazed at the boy named Rock Lee. "Indeed, Lee has been training under me for a while," Guy commented. Why, I mean, I know he kind of looks like you, but he's not a part of your family or anything," Inoichi said confusedly. But Guy hasn't been training him to be like our average shinobis, Inoichi-san," the Sandame replied. Seeing the confused look, he looked towards Guy to explain. "You see, Lee." Guy shook his head a bit sadly. "Lee unfortunately has a birth defect that has made his chakra coils broken and stunted." Seeing the surprised look on his face, Guy nodded. "You get it, don't you now?" "I have been training him in the art of using Kai," Guy answered the unasked question of Inoichi. Though not as proficient as his sparring partner, Naruto, he had the idea of it down, since he was purely a taijutsu fighter who happened to use chakra but nonetheless knew the mechanics of it and taught it to the poor boy. "So, you have been with Hime since you can remember," Lee noted to Naruto, who just stood with his legs spread apart and bent, his hands on his knees, giving a look of relaxation at his opponent. Naruto then rubbed his nose in a bit of arrogance. "We shall see in this fight who shall be the one to protect Hime," Lee challenged to Naruto. Hearing that made Naruto know it was a bit serious. Naruto always had this thought in his mind that he had to redeem himself for some reason and always protect those close to him, and Ino-chan was the closest friend he had. Even if this wasn't as serious as losing her, he wouldn't let anybody just hog the position of protecting her. "Come on then," Naruto said with emotion of his saying to bring it. "Yosh!" Rock Lee exclaimed. He charged in. Lee then went for a hard hit for Naruto's face, but Naruto jumped clearly over that. The cement gate behind him, though, didn't make it as the cement was crushed by Lee's fist. Naruto was about to bounce off a tree nearby, but Lee went in for axe kick at him. Again, Naruto dodged over his attack, but the tree was broken in two by Lee's enhanced Kai kick. "You're very slippery, Naruto-kun," Lee commented with smirk on his face. "It was fun having a fight like this." "You haven't seen nothing yet," Naruto said as he jumped up a bit before dashing at him. Just as he got in Lee's range, Naruto had to dodge left and right at the fast jabs Lee was shooting at him with Yushold Pishtinergy. Each pause was dodged to left or right, "That hard," Naruto said as he got in Lee's face, making the boy starting to step back some. But Naruto stayed in his face as he continued to lecture the boy about how to use Kai. "Kai is as instinctive as using your arm, you have let it come out or at least get in tune with it, or else you just going to botch it up." "This kid is good to be able to make Naruto dodge his attacks," Ino noted. Usually, Naruto let those who attack him hit his body, but he only did that for those who couldn't hurt him. It was usually bullies he had to deal with, and the bullies themselves would find out firsthand how rock hard Naruto's body was, as what happens after they do so was getting broken hands. To be able to make Naruto dodge meant that this Rock Lee must have some force of power in his hits. She then palmed her face because of her stupidity. The crumbled cement and broken tree should have been enough proof of that. Is projection of the physical energy in the body. Naruto kept dodging as he continued to teach Lee about Kai. If the boy could properly harness the energy, then he'd have another sparring partner, which was a good thing in his book. "This guy is good," Lee noted as he never even landed a hit on this Uzumaki Naruto. Taking one last swipe at him, Lee looked on with no surprise as how Naruto dodged his roundhouse kick by jumping back in a flip away from him. Everyone who was watching this fight were very impressed. They didn't know how good either of the two boys were. Off to the side, Fugaku looked on with disdain at the power the two boys were wielding. Looking at Itachi, who was at least twice the two boys' age, he noted to himself that he should push Itachi further so that these low-class peasants don't surpass the might of the Uchiha. He would definitely regret that decision in the future. "This will be the final move," Lee stated as he held his right hand and charged up Kai in the way Naruto was describing into his right hand and forearm, making a white glow appear around his arm, his feet showing he was ready to dash in a split second. "Alright, give me your best shot," Naruto said in with a grin on his face. Not a second, Lee almost vanished in a flash of speed. Well, vanished to those who were not trained fighters yet, everyone else saw him running at Naruto at a good amount speed. Naruto, though, saw him moving at a snail's pace and easily dodged it by jumping high in the air, leaving Lee to make a sort of booming sounding out in the area. Looking up, Lee saw Naruto coming down at him with his hands straight, as if going for a chop. Lee then repositioned himself and went for left hard jab at Naruto. Once close enough, the two then striked at each other. Naruto leaned his head to barely dodge Lee's fist as Naruto fingers hit Lee's head at what people assumed was a tap. Before the two could hit at each other again, a hand on both their shoulders stopped them. The two of them stopped and looked up to see the Sandame's smiling face. "A good match, you two," Sarutobi said, leaving the hint that the fight was done. Luckily the two caught it and settled their stances. "Now I think you two should give each other praises for the match itself." Seeing sense in those words, both Naruto and Lee bowed to each other in respect. It was a good match, the two of them said at the same time as they both lifted themselves up and had good-natured grins on their faces. "Naruto-kun, you are truly worthy of protecting Ino-chan. I hope to someday find my own Haim to protect," Lee conceded to Naruto as he bowed once again to him. "I shall not bother either of you again." "Ah, come on, Lee, you, me, and Ino-chan can still hang out," Naruto said as she scratched the back of his head. "Really?" Lee said with utter true happiness. The other students of the academy didn't seem to like being around him since he couldn't use chakra. It was a good thing his idol, Guy-sensei, had come to him and took care of that problem when he had taught him what he knew about Kai. Now that his new friend knew more about it, he could be one step closer to achieving his dream of becoming a ninja that used Jujutsu alone. "For sure, and I still gotta help you with your Kai control. You can even become a good sparring partner of mine," Naruto said with that sunny grin of his. Lee was bouncing up and down at that offer and wholeheartedly nodded. "I would be honored, my friend." He then turned back to the doors of the academy. "We will see each other again, Naruto-kun, Ino-chan." Lee then dashed at a good amount of speed back to the academy, most likely to get back to the first day of class of his new year. "See you, Lee." Naruto waved goodbye to the retreating form of the guy fan. "Hope he doesn't take it personal that I wrote fair on his head and bruises," Naruto thought with a bit of nervous chuckle. He then scratched the right side of his neck in irritation for a bit, not noticing the bruise where Lee had missed his hit. 4 years later. Not a whole lot happened since that day he started learning at the Ninja Academy. Sure, he made some good friends, those being Rock Lee, Inuzuka Kiba, and Aburame Shino. The others he had already met, those being Ino, Choji, Shikamaru, Tenten, and Hinata. Tenten always seemed to be a bit of a tomboy, which he had voiced right in front of her, but she just shrugged it off and agreed that she was and was proud to be one. Hinata was quiet and repestful and would always cheer him on to do his best. Naruto always did reply back that he was already the best. And it was true if the tests during in and out of class showed anything. In class, he was keeping his place as Rookie of the Year, a fact that irked the last surviving Uchiha. Though Naruto felt for him a bit since he too didn't have any parents and most of his race of people was killed by a cold and heartless tyrant. But even with that in mind, he really didn't like the attitude the kid had, so he just shrugged at him. The kid asked the first time he was placed as the best to fight him. That fight had lasted at least 10 seconds as Naruto was really getting irritated with the boy and flicked his forehead, making the boy fly into a tree and get knocked out. As for the outside of the class, Naruto had continued his training in the usage of Kai, and chakra. His Kai had risen exponentially due to his constant training workout. He could most likely bench the Hokage stone face monuments if he wanted to and still go for a few more rounds. This being due to King Kai weights since he was now getting around at least 20 tons. His Kai was coming along nicely as he knew that besides strength and skill, he needed to know at least some tactics, so he opted to learn some strategy at times when he was actually exhausted with his physical training. This combined with his meditation training had made his Kai just as good as his Kai, thus making a good balance of chakra, making him also have some good control over his mind powers. And to increase his reserves on chakra, he started to combine the exercises he had learned so far, such as tree, water, kunai, and senbon training. Combining in ways as like sticking the senbons into the tree trunks all the way up to the top and try to run up those and not make them fall off with his weight on them while shooting off jutsu in the process or keeping kunai stuck to various parts of his body while doing a complex kata over a large body of water while also dodging shuriken attack from some of his senseis. Many other combined exercises were made and allowed Naruto's chakra control grew at that of a medic nin. Though many would argue that it was impossible for one so young to have so much control over so much chakra, the ones who knew him would just scoff and let those who doubted him watch him train in those exercises. When asked about it as well, he'd just say that the original exercises were too tame and he was a person who wanted a challenge that was at least a bit chaotic. Those who had watched his training could only shake their head in disbelief, just where did he get the drive from? His senseis, them being Sarutobi, King Kai, Guy and Inoichi, could really see that Naruto was at least mid-jounin. He would have been higher, but he hadn't gained any individual experience on his own yet. If only they knew now, with the exception of King Kai and Sarutobi that is. Because just about half a year ago, Naruto had received a bulk of Bardock's memories. It had been a painful process, feeling all the experience of a battle-hardened Saiyan being crammed into his head, but it also answered why he was the only one of his race of people left. Or was. Even though it sounded strange, his son was still alive, on planet Earth. When he remembered that and his training with his mind powers, he sat down in a meditative state and sent his mind's eye to the planet to see how he was doing. It brought a smile to his face to see his son, who was the same age as him now, odd that, was having a good time on his adventures. It really made him wonder what he could wish with those Dragon Balls though. Shrugging to himself, oh well, maybe if he could find his ship when he became trusted enough to leave the village, he could find a way to fix it and be able to meet his son when Ajiji would let him. Since he knew he was fused, something he had extracted information about from King Kai about, he knew he was Bardock, but not. He was Naruto, but also not. He shook his head, it was a confusion of identities at first, but he knew how to phrase it now that he thought about it. Bardock was Naruto and Naruto was Bardock, it was just as simple as that. Nothing to be confused about really, he was who he was. There was one thing he wanted to do once he was able to get his pod fixed, besides meeting his son, Kakarot or Goku, he reminded himself as he remembered the controlled vision he had. That one thing was to find Frieza and make him eat his heart. He didn't care if it was him, Prince Vegeta or his son, but Frieza will pay for destroying his people and his friends, Tora, Fasha, and the others. Shaking his head about thinking about his old comrades, Naruto got back to paying attention to his flying. He may have not gotten permission to leave Konoha, but that didn't mean he wasn't going to sneak out every now and then. And while he could look for his ship since he knew it was in Fire Country, he didn't want any ninja patrols to spot him and get in trouble. Looking around, he noticed that it was somewhat snowing. Looking down at the ground, he saw what looked like a boy probably 2 years older than him playing around with some rabbits around the snowfield, seemingly unaffected by the cold of the weather. Naruto, seeing this as getting a new friend, started to descend down to the field below. Hey, he may be a little more mature and experienced than his current friends and age group, but he was still a kid and kids look for friends to have some fun with. When he landed, he raised his hand, hollered, "Oi," he called out to the boy. When the boy stopped chasing the snow-white rabbit, he looked towards Naruto. Naruto now noticed his features. He seemed somewhat feminine, something like those bishounins he sees in those mangas Ino likes to read around her room. His eyes were nice shade of brown and had long black hair. He was wearing guy-like shirt with what looked like bandages underneath them and brown pants. He assumed he was wearing at least some form of footwear, but couldn't tell since his feet were covered in snow. The boy looked worriedly at him for a moment. "What do you want?" he asked in what sounded almost like a girl's voice. Cocking his head innocently at the boy's wariness at him and the sound of his voice, Naruto just shrugged internally and turned on his best Uzumaki smile. "I just wanted to come play for a bit." Naruto then appeared in a flash of speed in front of the boy. "My name's Uzumaki Naruto, who are you?" Naruto asked politely as he took his hand and shook it. He oddly noted that his hands were unusually soft for a boy. Oh well, that just meant he was a bit of a girly boy, he'd get him out that funk soon enough. Blinking in surprise at how fast the boy came at him and how cheerful he was, the feminine boy greeted in kind. "Hello, my name is Haku," his voice still sounding like one of girl. "Haku-chan, then," Naruto said happily as he gave him a pet name, doing a little teasing since he sounded and acted like a girl. The boy blushed a bit for some reason, but nodded with smile. Inside the boy's mind, he couldn't help but think how cute Naruto was. "I'll only let you call me that if you let me call you Naru-chan," he conditioned to him. Seeing that he was getting teased back, he chuckled. Good, at least this guy wasn't being submissive to him. A little playful words did everyone a bit of good every now and again. "Sure then Haku-chan," Naruto said as he gave him a pat on his shoulder. But then got mischievous smile. "Oh, and just one more thing." "Nani?" he asked as he cocked his head to the side. Naruto blinked a bit. If he was even a girl, he would have thought that look was kawaii. "Avalanche," Naruto said before he jumped away. Just as he did so, a pile of snow fell down on Haku. Sputtering a bit, Haku came out with an irritated look on her face. "Ooh, you jackass, I wasn't even ready for that." Haku, for once, was angry. "Ooh," Naruto was going to get it. "Can you say Haku-chan popsicle?" "Ha ha ha ha," Naruto said as he laughed at his new friend. But was stopped as a pile of snow fell on him, bursting out of the snow pile. He blinked at the chuckling, or was that giggling, Haku. "Ah, payback's a dish best served cold Naru-chan," Haku said with smug smile on his face, a frigid air of snow forming around him. "Wow, that's cool, so you can manipulate snow." Naruto must have said wrong thing as the snow around Haku immediately fell down. Haku looked left and right in worry now. He had gotten caught in the heat of the moment and used his Kekkei Genkai Kasen said to never use it again. "I promised her, what am I going to do? She always said people wouldn't accept my gifts, now Naru-chan's going hate me, just like the other kids." Haku then started to tear up. He was about to cry when a hand landed on his shoulder, breaking his train of thought. He looked up and saw the dark navy blue eyes of his newly appointed friend, Naruto, looking at him in concern. "You alright? You know boys shouldn't cry," Naruto said in concern for his new friend. "I'm alright, he froze at what he just said lastly. She then looked at him with a bit of glare. "Mind repeating that last part you said pal," Haku said in frigid tone. Blinking a bit, Naruto thought back to what he said and repeated, "Boys shouldn't cry." He oddly felt the temperature lower a little more. Gritting his teeth, Haku strained out his words and was about give Naruto the beating of his life Ayamagi. "Haku, it's time to come in dear, dinner is ready." He heard his mother call out to him. Blinking at the interruption, he sighed, no need to beat the boy when it was time to eat. He didn't want to get on his mother's bad side now. "Well, it's time for me to go Naru-chan." Haku then started to walk away, but then remembered that he didn't know where Naruto came from and was worried he wouldn't see him again. "Will I ever see you again Naru-chan?" he asked in timid tone. Even though he was a bit of jerk, Naruto was starting to be like a starting good friend. Scratching the back of his head, Naruto grinned at Haku. "Sure you will." He then thought about the times he was available and nodded to himself. "I'm always free on the weekends, so how about coming here every weekend at noon?" Naruto suggested to his snowy friend. Thinking about it, he happily nodded. "Hi," he answered cheerfully. Good. He then started to float from the ground, surprising Haku at his ability to fly. "I'll see you sometime next week, Haku-chan." He then blasted off from the ground, kicking up snowing in his show of force. "And remember, boys don't cry," Naruto hollered to him. The second after hearing that and getting out a shock of seeing Naruto actually fly, she shaked her fist at him with an angry face on. "Do I have to spell it out for you, you jackass?" I'm seeing that he was already a dot in the sky. He just sighed. "Oh what's the use, it's not like it's going to matter if he knows I'm actually a girl," Haku said as she shook her head with a sigh, but then blushed. But if he did know, what he would act like. She wondered if he would be like the princes in those stories her mother read to her. She sighed, she hoped he was like that if he ever found out she was a girl. A day later found Naruto looking at the opponents circling left and right. His opponents in this sparring session were Guy, Kakashi, and Asuma. Though some would think these three would take it easy on the fused ninja, they would be wrong, since they had come to know that even though Naruto hadn't exactly been out in the field yet, the kid knew how to move and fight like a veteran. They would have had understood better to know that he was fused with a battle-hardened Saiyan. Right now, he was wearing his usual black and green collared Chinese shirt, the red wristbands turned into red arm guards with black serpent-like dragons etched onto them. His Anbu pants being held up by the belt on his waist and by his brown tail with heavy combat boots replacing his martial arts slippers, the boots weighted down like the rest of his clothing. His red headband was a bit longer now, its long tails waving around in the gentle breeze that passed through. With all the weight on him, he still was a match for all three Jounins. In a way, think of Sodom Ranma's usual attire, but with my changes. With no signal given, all three Jounins attacked the fused Saiyan boy. They threw everything they had into jutsu, and in Asuma's case, a bit of kenjutsu with his trench knives. Ducking, parrying, and weaving around the attacks, and even jumping over or through some of Kakashi's ninjutsu, Naruto was having the time of his life. Now this was how fights should be. Punches thrown that could break a person's bone into a million pieces, slashes that would dice most into mincemeat, blasts of energy and elements being thrown at you with the intention of either disabling or incinerating you, this was how he liked to fight in a battle. Pure chaos, a common thing in a battle with Saiyans involved, since they expected no less than a mountain being blown apart as a requirement in a battle. Lucky for these guys this was just a spar. Seeing that it was about time to wrap this up, Naruto dashed in a burst of speed. A roundhouse to Asuma's face, a hard elbow into Kakashi's gut, and a good ol' headbutt to Guy's face in a matter of 2 seconds, sent the three reeling back in pain. Flipping away from them a couple of times to get some distance, Naruto got into a prerequisite stance for what had became his Saiyan clan signature technique, Kamiyaha. Seeing where this was going, Kakashi quickly flipped through his hand seals. As soon as he got it when Naruto was about to start the next part of the chant, he called out, "Doten. Doryu Heki." Somehow, in some way, he spat out a stream of mud from behind his mask. Not a second later, the mud sprang up and turned into a hard stone wall. "Get behind me and help me keep this up." The other two did so, not really needing to told twice as they had seen this coming as well. The brightness of the bluish-white ball of Kai in between, shined greatly before he thrust both his hands forward and gave good push. "Hiya!" Naruto exclaimed out loud as he sent a blue Kai blast of destruction towards the trio. As soon as it hit the stone wall, dirt started to fly out, the beam not seemingly content to explode just yet. Asuma, Guy, and Kakashi were having a hard time keeping their chakra into the stone wall, seeing as how the blast was quite powerful, even with the three of them pumping as much chakra as they could to force it back or let it pass over. The trio did indeed outlast the blast, as it only made halfway through to them, but it had also left them totally exhausted. The three slumped onto the ground as the stone wall crumbled back into its base element. What made them groan in frustration and mercy was Naruto standing perfectly full of energy, not even panting after using the Kamehameha wave. Naruto just grinned a bit sadistically at the three. "That would have been impressive guys if I had been using at least 20% of the technique's original power that made the three of them go wide-eyed with wide eyes and gaping jaws." "Just how much power did you use?" the trio asked incredulously. Being a little freaked out was the understatement of the lifetime. It's like saying Jiraiya is a little perverted. "Oh, about 5%, Naruto commented casually with the usual hint of arrogance in his tone. The three groaned again as they knew he was spelling out to them that, and they quote, "the best ninja on the planet." "You, Gaki, are too much," Asuma lazily said to the mixed-colored haired boy as he thought about quitting smoking just to get his lungs back to normal, even though they were still in good condition, since he kept using chakra to do his best to keep it clean, not they weren't affected in any way nonetheless. "I can just imagine the girl he'll get with, she'll be nothing but a pile of goop after he's done with her," Kakashi muttered under his breath, silently wishing he had the boy's stamina since it seemed to be endless. But, he mused, it had to be because of his status as a Jinchuriki to an unknown Biju. He often wondered how the boy could even pull the things he did since he separated chakra to its base elements and be able to use them in such destructive ways. He knew Guy could do that to some extent but couldn't fully do it for some reason. He reasoned that it had to with being able to grow accustomed to it from a young age such as Naruto's. "Your flames of youth are too much, even for me sometimes, Naruto-kun," Guy said as he panted, and seeing a panting Guy was a rare thing since he was second to Naruto's great stamina and power, with Lee closely coming up to the third. That was no surprise since all the boy did was train, sometimes even with Naruto himself. Of course, Lee still couldn't match up to Naruto's battle prowess quite yet. Thinking about the boy, Naruto couldn't help but wonder if the boy was a Saiyan himself. The power, strength, speed, and aptitude to use Kai, it was all the matching signs of a growing Saiyan. The only thing missing was the brown tail. So, until he could find someone who was knowledgeable in genetics on Saiyans or anyone that could match the DNA of one, he couldn't really say if the boy was really a Saiyan or not. "You guys need to train some more, Taku, geez," Naruto scolded them, which made them groan more since it was supposed to be them scolding him since he was the junior here. Naruto just shrugged and went to pack up. He had a trip with the old man to aim to meet this guy named Hanzo. It seemed this guy had heard about him and let the old man there was tournament going on for exceptionally strong prodigies. Though he really didn't consider himself a prodigy of any sort, he was just experienced really, he couldn't pass up the opportunity to fight someone on this planet that might give challenge. Besides the prodigies that Hanzo mentioned fighting in the tournament, he had also stated that other children that were allowed to participate if they passed a test to enter it. That meant any unknown fighter could come in with no intel on just how powerful they were. For your average upcoming ninja or any other ninja, that would be a problem with them, but Naruto had loved to be surprised in fights. Sure, knowing the guy's style, jutsus, and tactics would help come out of a fight relatively unharmed if you had a counter strategy to the opponent's moves and thought patterns. But for a Saiyan like himself, or any other Saiyan for that matter, he wanted a fight where he could come out bloodied and bruised and feeling good that he had come out on top in the end. It was the excitement of the unknown and seeing jutsus never before seen that gave him a rush. Speaking of jutsus, he could pick up on and learn some new ones to come up with his own jutsus. One jutsu he had made, which would most likely be a B-A class jutsu, was a combination of the Kaiten, Kyryuenden and Futon, Rinkuden no jutsu. He had named it Mako Bakunetsu, the fierce tiger erupting, which took the form of a mighty, roaring giant flame tiger. The jutsu was a Kaiten-based jutsu that was just as hot and powerful as Kaiten, Kyryuenden, but had the added effect of drilling of the Futon, Rinkuden no jutsu. When he had practiced it on a Kage Bunshin, something he had picked off Kakashi the other day, he had used the Mako Bakunetsu. The one thing he felt was the memory of the clone come to him, and it definitely didn't feel like a pleasant feeling to have your skin being boiled and burned alive when within a second of being torn asunder by invisible cutting winds. Even though feeling the clone's death being hit by the full power of the jutsu had made him cringe a bit, Naruto couldn't help but grin like a maniac. Ooh, would he love to just use this jutsu on Frieza. That was about the only combined jutsu he could come up with so far, but he felt he could make up more if just had enough time to think and break down the jutsus he had in his repertoire. Maybe if he could just see the Trakiri Kakashi has just once and see one of the two legendary jutsus of the Yondaime, the Rasengan if he remembered right, then maybe he could make those two S-class jutsu into a whole new bracket of power on its own, maybe even call it an SSS class jutsu if he ever got them combined and added their elements and power levels together. Or, he could make them combined with the Kai blasts he learned mostly from his visions, including with his own signature technique, the final spirit cannon. This was a lot to ponder on. As he rounded the corner to the hall that led to his room, he bumped into a familiar somebody. Oof, he heard a female grunt before looking down to see his best friend, Ino, getting back up with a scowl on her face. He chuckled nervously and scratched the back of his head at the moment he saw that scowl. He didn't how, but this girl just seemed to have some sort of control over him that makes him not want to have her angry at him. Watch where you going, Naruto. She then bopped him on the head with kendo stick, seemingly bringing it out of nowhere somehow. When she had hit him, his head bent down from the blow, even though it really didn't hurt, and had his both hands extended outward with both of their wedding and middle fingers bent in, leaving the hands out in warding gestures. Ow, he grunted fake manner. He came out of his position and rubbed the offended area and pouted at Ino, who somehow had just made the kendo stick disappear out of thin air. You didn't have to do that, Ino-chan. Well, you should mind your surroundings, or do you want to be killed by an enemy nin that would sneak up on you when you're like that? Ino chided Naruto as if he were a child. But then she shook her head, but she then looked up at him with warmth in her eyes. I guess you wouldn't be you if weren't the dimwit that I've known since way back then. Her smile was practically so radiant, it made Naruto blush how cute she looked. As the two had foreseen when they were starting out in the ninja academy, they had now attended the same class when they finally turned 10 years old. When that happened, they had been so happy, they had gone out to eat lunch together. It was then that Ino had saw Uchiha Sasuke and almost went gaga over him. That is, until he had come up to him to challenge Naruto again to fight. Naruto had ignored him, and Ino saw this as a chance to get to know her forming crush on the broody Uchiha. It was right then what the boy had said to Ino made any forming feelings for the boy get crushed and grow even more for the fused ninja, as the Uchiha had said he wouldn't talk to trash tramps that aren't worthy of his time. It was when he said those words that Naruto had shot his eyes wide open in anger and proceeded to beat the boy within an inch of his life as he saw Ino's eyes watering up the harsh words. It took almost all of his senseis, save King Kai, to stop him from killing the boy. And only then, it took only a mind jutsu from Inoichi to forcibly sleep the boy to settle him down. Naruto had been punished severely for what he did, but he said if it was for Ino-chan, he'd endure because he would never want to see her eyes shed any sort tears unless they were only shedding for joy. So because of that, Ino still had her best friend Sakura with her. It was a relief because Sakura had voiced her interest in the Uchiha. Ino had held her tongue about Sakura's interests in pursuing him, a person who really didn't care for the feelings of others and only cared for his own self and his goals. But, Ino mused, if Sakura could break through the darkness that seemed to have a hold on Sasuke, it would probably make him better in the end. So, after telling Sakura her good luck in getting her man, the two then proceeded to gossip a bit about what they liked in their interests. But Naruto, as always, was oblivious to Ino's crush. It seemed to make her a little sad that he didn't notice her interests. But then, she remembered Hinata was just about that same. When she had confronted Hinata about this, Hinata had just smiled at her and said for her to do her best in getting Naruto. It confused her to no end when she said that. She had expected an outburst of anger or a shocking look followed by a crying form of Hinata slumped against the wall for someone already being near Naruto. She had asked why she had said that and Hinata said that all she admired Naruto for was his courage and strength. That he always helped her when she needed it like a big brother and that would be all she saw him as, a big brother. But then, she giggled and mentioned that she did have an interest in a certain Inuzuka in their class. Ino really couldn't believe this girl was the Hinata she had met when they were just starting the ninja academy. Whereas she was shy and respectful then, this Hinata was a bit more outspoken and still respectful, but if she found something she didn't like and knew it was wrong, she would correct it. One of the things she knew she frowned upon was the cage bird seal she had mentioned to her one time, a seal Hinata wished to abolish the day she became the clan head of the Hyuga. Ino know only one person who could have made Hinata into the girl that is in their class to this day, and his name was Uzumaki Naruto. Shaking her head internally about past events, she cocked her head in a cute manner and smiled at him, a good feeling growing in her heart, seeing that flushed face of his, it meant that he was finally noticing her, yay, so, what you doing now, Naruto-kun? Naruto shook his head a bit and tried to banish the thoughts of Ino's cute look out of his mind, which was hard since she was still doing it in front of him. I was just about to pack up to get ready to leave for a tournament in AIM, Naruto informed and immediately frowned worriedly as he saw her face fall at that, what's the matter? Yare were leaving the village. Ino asked in a bit of scared voice. Yeah, but I'm just going there for the tournament, I'll be back afterwards. He then hugged her and held her gently. How would I be able to keep my promise to you if I don't know if you're the best kunoichi in the world or not by not staying in this village, Naruto reminded. Not trusting her voice, she sounded that she agreed and laid her head against his chest and started to snuggle up against him. This was something she always wanted to feel, she knew now, this was a feeling that meant he was meant for her. Forget that they were both at least 10 years old, she just knew, and it was as simple as that. Naruto-kun, I just got invited along with Yado. Rock Lee had just come around the corner to see the youthful scene before him. He had gotten news that he too was invited along with Naruto to participate in this tournament and that the two had permission from both the Sandaime and the Ninja Academy that they were allowed to go. He had been so excited that he was finally being recognized for his training with his ever-youthful comrade, he just had to tell him that he was coming along. But seeing this just made him feel a little bit out of place. The two looked towards the voice and then back to each other, only to note how their lips almost brushed against each other when they turned to look at the one they were hugging. The two froze and turned beet red in embarrassment and separated faster than you can say Mauko Bakunetsu. Haha, hey Lee, so you got in too, huh? That's real good, man, real good, Naruto said in a bit of wavy voice and a forced smile while scratching the back of his head. In his mind though, he was berating himself stupid, stupid, stupid. What the hell was that? Are you actually falling for your best friend? Ino just had her body turned away from the boys with her face still beet red in not only embarrassment but also in anger. I was so close, I was so close. I could have at least pecked him to seal the deal, damn it. Ino cursed herself in anger at the interruption. Lee blinked a bit before getting his sunny smile back, completely forgetting what just happened in his usual oblivious fashion. I'm coming with you to the tournament in AIM, Naruto-kun, I've been invited along with you, he happily told his sparring partner and very good friend. Completely forgetting the situation himself, Naruto got an excited look on his face and clamped his hands onto Lee's shoulders and patted, that's good man, he then got teasing smile on his face, but you know you're gonna lose when you go up against me, he said with his usual arrogance. Yosh, I will show you the flames of my youth that have shone through my training, Naruto-kun, Lee exclaimed with a clenched fist and fired up eyes. Ino sighed, knowing now that her crush was too far into his enthusiasm of fighting to even think about continuing the romantic scene they just had. She then turned gave a hug to him, leaving Naruto blinking, don't lose, got it, baka? Ino asked with a demanding tone. Naruto got a small smile, knowing the undertone of her demand was just for him to take care of himself while he was at the tournament, of course, Naruto said with his usual confident smile, I can't ever lose, because I'm the best, Naruto told her, as if she was just a baby. She lightly slapped his arm once she got out of hugging him, arrogant jerk, she said simply with a smile. Naruto just smiled and shrugged. She then turned to leave at the moment. When she was about to turn down a corner, she peeked her head over it. "I'll see you off when you leave, bye Naruto-kun," she waved at him as she left. Seeing her leave, Naruto turned to Lee and put his arm around his shoulder. "Come on, man, let's get to sparring. And later, we'll get packed up to leave for AIM," Naruto said to him as he led him to the dojo. "Yosh," Lee said in happy manner. In a town, in between Kusa, AIM, and Hai no Kuni lands, a figure in walked down a beaten path. When a passerby went past a hooded robed figure, the figure seemed to sneer at the person, as if the people who were passing it were a bane were bugs in its eyes. Returning its eyesight to the road, she stopped when she saw information board was beside. As it continued, something made it stop as it gazed at a particular ad. The figure went up to it and read, "Those who wish to test your skills and be known for it, look no further. Hanzo, Cage of AIM, is hosting a World Ninja Tournament for all skill fighters to participate. All those who win the first place will be known as the world's greatest ninja and 1,000,000 Ryo, but only if they prove after they come out on top by fighting Hanzo himself. Second place winners get half the amount and third get half of that." Reading this, it finally remembered something. Chuckling at reading this, it wouldn't even have considered participating in any sort of feeble thing as this. But the one it was searching for would most assuredly would. Changing its destination, the robed and hooded figure made its journey to the World Ninja Tournament. Lifting a hand up to its face, a claw in fact, it let a haze of red energy swirl around its hand, a manic grin showing through the shadow the hood was casting. "I know you'll be there, Bardock, don't disappoint me." Looks like things just got a bit more exciting for Naruto. What if Naruto trained by Bardock for chunin exams? And thanks for watching my video till the end. If you enjoy this content, then do consider subscribing to my channel and leave a like if you guys need the next part, comment down, and thanks for watching the video and see you guys in the next video.